That summer, I learned to cast a line from the willow shade by the river, where the water wore a ribbon of light. I was 9, and the world felt larger than the back garden or the chalk white road that cut through our village like a seam. Grandfather stood behind me, his hands over mine, guiding the rod with a patient, almost ceremonial calm, as if the river itself spoke through his weathered fingers. The morning air carried a scent I would later recognize as the smell of sun-warmed earth and rising lilac, the sort of scent that clings to the skin and never quite leaves you. The bank was a quiet clump of reeds and the soft green of willows, their slender fronds brushing the air as if they were blessing us with a whisper. A distant bell from the little church drifted across the fields, soft and almost indifferent to the heat. Somewhere a dog barked, a single, small cry that rose and faded into the day. And there, beside the old wooden pier, I learned to listen. Grandfather's hands, calloused, patient, moved to mine and then over mine again as he fixed the reel and guided the line to the cork float. The rod's wooden shaft warmed quickly in the sun, and the waxy scent of the varnish rose with every deliberate touch. He spoke little, which was unusual for him. Most days his voice carried a steady, cheerful noise, the kind of sound you didn't notice until it was gone. But that morning he spoke softly, slowly, as if choosing each word to give me something I could keep. "See this," he said, tapping the cork. "This is a promise you make to the river. You don't rush a promise." And then, "Patience, child. The river tells you when to listen, if you're listening at all." We practiced 2 casts, then 3, and after the 4th take, the line fell in a long, lazy arc, plopping into the water with a small sigh. The surface trembled, and a gentle tug lifted the line, and my heart leaped toward it, as eager as a child's, though I fought to pretend I was calm and sturdy, the way grown-ups do when they're teaching you something they want you to remember. Grandfather's sidelong smile did the rest. He did not laugh or pretend surprise, just watched with that quiet respect that seems to belong to people who have learned to measure the world in careful moments rather than loud successes. The float bobbed once, twice, and then dipped, almost shyly. The line pulled taut, and I felt the river answer back, a soft, patient tug, as if the current were coaxing a story out of me. I remember the fish's first splash of silver, a small trout perhaps, or a rivering chub, the way the water flickered around its body as it wriggled in the air. The moment stretched, and in it there was process and promise, my own small rite of becoming. Grandfather didn't hurry me. He kept his hands on the rod, guiding, never gripping. "Let him swim a moment," he said in a voice that could have belonged to the river itself. "If you pull too soon, you'll lose him. If you wait a touch longer, you'll learn where mercy ends and mercy begins." I felt the line's tremor travel to my shoulder, a tremor that wasn't fear, but something deeper, an ache and a kind of astonishment that a world can be so patient and so precise all at once. We brought him to the bank together, me with the rod mid-air. Grandfather steady and calm as if his own breath were the tide. He eased the fish into a shallow pool of water just beyond the edge of the reeds, and, with a gentleness that surprised me, unhooked it and let it swim away. "There," he said, watching the creature vanish into shadow and light. "It's theirs to carry on, if they want. We take what we need and leave the rest." It wasn't a sermon in a church pew, and it wasn't a boast. It was a quiet teaching, the kind you keep in your pocket for weathering storms later in life. That afternoon we walked back to the house along a country lane, dusty, warm, and edged with the soft green of hedges and corn. The world carried a fragrance of bread cooling on a windowsill, of rain that never quite fell but promised, of damp earth and crushed grass underfoot. The river's memory slid behind my eyes, a slow, unhurried film of light across water. Grandfather spoke less about fishing and more about the life he hoped I would lead. Patient, observant, careful with my words and with the love. That night, the house smelled of something comforting. Broad beans on the boil, the kettle hissing, and the sound of supper being laid out on worn wooden boards. We ate on the back porch, where the river could still be heard if you leaned your head just so and listened for its slow, continuous breathing. Grandfather spoke more softly about small things, how a day's work is done, when to stand still, and when to move forward. It arrived differently, in little snatches, the scent of rain on dust after a long drought, the sound of a distant laugh carried on a breeze, the way a line of a poem would arrange itself in my head and stay there, quiet as a candle left burning in the dark. It was only later that I understood what that morning on the river had given me. A template for living, a way to move with the world rather than against it. I learned to measure times by the river's tides, the slow, patient patience of things that endure. I learned to speak softly, not because I feared the truth, but because truth, when spoken gently, can lift more weight than a shout can bear. And I learned, most quietly, that to love well is to release more than you capture, to leave the careful space for life to continue growing. In the years that followed, through crowded classrooms, busy streets, and the many little griefs and glories of adult life, I found myself returning to that morning by the willow shade. The exact details grew less sharp as memories do, softened by years of living and the weathering of grief and joy alike. Yet the lesson remained clear as glass. Do not rush what matters. Listen longer. Hold mercy before impulse. Let the river decide when to take and when to give back. The world asked big things of me, sometimes with the loud insistence of necessity, sometimes with the quiet insistence of a bell that would not stop ringing in the heart until I paid attention. And there was this, an unspoken gratitude that grew with the passing of days. For grandfather's hands, which guided a clumsy boy toward a measure of grace. For the river, which taught a small girl to wait without fear. For the way a single morning, simple as bread, could lay down rails that carried me across decades. Time did not erase the memory, but it deepened it. Now, in the soft light of evening, when the room grows gold and the world outside slows to a patient hush, I spill these recollections like warm pebbles into a pocket full of air. I am old enough to know that summers end and roads change and people leave and come back in different coats. Yet if I listen, I can still hear grandfather's patient breath, the river's quiet murmur, the small, certain sound of a line being cast, and a fish's first glimpse of daylight. And I am grateful for the memory that kept me steady when the days grew long and heavy, for the mercy I learned to offer before I could name it, and for a life that seems larger for having learned to wait. Time may pass, but meaning endures, tucked into the corners of ordinary days, the bowl of soup cooling on the stove, the chairs set just so at dusk, the way a child's hand fits into a grown-up's palm. The river's lesson still slows my steps and steadies my voice. And in this late season of my life, I give thanks for the quiet gift of that summer, for the patient hands that changed a girl into a woman who could listen, and for the enduring knowledge that the world, in its small and vast ways, remains worthy of our care and our gentle attention.